Good evening, friends. It's so good to be with everybody. The team at Hinge has missed you. We miss seeing people in person. We hope that you're all well and safe. And this is the beginning of our November Fireside Chat Series. Fireplace. And so thank you for sending your questions in. We really wanted this to be an interactive session and to find out what's important to you, what's on your mind, what are you thinking, how can we support you better, what information are you looking for. I think almost every day I find myself with a wow moment about something I didn't see that was happening in the industry. We've had a lot of great questions, and tonight I've grouped our questions that are financial related, and I'll explain to you why I chose that for this evening in just a minute. I have the Hinge team with me this week here in South Carolina. We are focused on some teaming concepts, and we are doing our planning for next year because there are fantastic things happening in the world of transactions, and it's a great opportunity time. It's blowing our minds, and we did our October webinar on what's happening in the world of transactions. So if you'd like to know more about that, you can pick it up from our website at hingebrokers.com. So let's just jump right in here. I want to take it, I have 5 financial questions. So I'm going to tackle the first 3, and then I'm going to invite a guest over here to join me, someone I'm excited to introduce you to. So first question is, what are most people doing with tuition if they have to close due to COVID? And really good question. So if I tackle that question from 10,000 feet, it seems like that when we started in March, the way we were navigating closures was based on an incident in the school and a complete closure of the school, and usually for a couple of weeks. I think as we have put our protocols in place and we've morphed into self-contained classrooms and less movement of teachers and children from area to area and class to class, most companies seem to be doing that a little bit differently. So as they have incidents in their school, they're mainly shutting down a classroom, and usually for about 2 days. So the question here relates to, what are people doing with tuition? I think that largely people are not charging tuition during the time that they're closed. So the March to June time period when people were closed due to COVID, some people didn't close at all, some people closed for a few weeks. That was all over the board what people did. Some people charged half, some people charged and gave an offset later. But where we are now with incidents and closures of classrooms, it looks to us like most of our clients are not charging tuition during the time that they're closed. Question number 2, how do you see changes in operating expenses impacting financial stability over time? I really like this question because I think this is an area of opportunity for us. So we also did a webinar on this a couple of months ago about the offset of expenses from one area to another. So at the moment, most everyone is experiencing increased costs in staffing due to either lower ratios or less enrollment or new protocols in the building. Also, they have new expenses in their cleaning supplies at minimum. So we came up with some strategies to help offset some of those costs. My favorite one is to ask parents to bring meals, to bring lunch for their children. And that's not only good from a safety standpoint, it shifts some expenses away from food into other categories. And some of that may be with us to stay. Everyone has a prediction, of course, but I think we have another solid 6 months of figuring things out with different protocols before we stabilize. So most people believe that early to late spring of 2021, don't panic, that we'll start to normalize and be able to return to some of our regular protocols. But some of those expenses may be here to stay. So to offset other expenses, or don't forget about tuition rate increases and be bold with this. We've been talking about this since March, so let us know if you have questions, but we think now is the time for you to be very bold about your business processes and to reinvent your school in a way that continues your ability to be financially healthy and for your ability to be there for children and families. And then the third question is, how will the value of a company change due to COVID? This couldn't be surprising us more, but this is what is actually happening. We actually have more deal flow with sellers than we have ever had in our history. What we're finding is the value of companies is based on where they were in 2019, so their most recent stable period, with the difference being that there is structure built into the payment. So what I mean by that is that the values based on 2019 and the closing occurs with a certain amount of the value paid in cash and a certain amount paid in the future based on actual recovery. So the structure may be different, but the values are the same. And so for the fourth and fifth questions, I'm excited to invite my friend Rusty Bailey over here. Come here, Rusty. There's nothing like joining a team and getting thrown into the fire on the very first meeting with the team, right? So Rusty is our newest team member at HINGE, and we couldn't be happier to have Rusty join our team. Rusty's a 30-year veteran of the industry. He has joined as our financial analyst, so he is our everything financial. He runs our evaluations and supports our clients through their process with the financial diligence. So Rusty worked for Childcare, then he worked for Nobel Learning, which became Spring Education in their recent acquisition. And so Rusty has a 30-year vision as a buyer. And now he is supporting our sellers, so he's a fantastic resource. So I'm going to hit you with some questions, Rusty.
Okay, Kathy, that sounds great.
Thank you for joining us here.
Hello, everyone.
So first of all, Rusty, this is a fantastic question. So what can a child care owner do to boost the value of their business the 6 months or year leading to its listing? So what should they do?
Well, hopefully it would be at least a year, because you want to see positive trends year over year for enrollment and revenue. You want to see stable employment. You don't want to see a lot of fluctuations in your enrollment and your employment, your staff, because the stable staff and your enrollment are what makes a really strong financial performance, and it shows consistency, which is really key in your financial performance. So year over year, quarter over quarter, and even during the tough time during this last summer summer and fall, it's important to be able to show that there's been improvement, and that consistency is really important.
So what you want to show is that you're making a steady increase. And a lot of that's related to tuition rate increases. So how would you feel about a company making a tuition rate increase every year, or is that more attractive than a company that doesn't do it regularly?
I think it's more attractive from my position in the prior businesses I've been in to see that consistent tuition increase every year, because you want to be able to cover your cost of rent and be able to pay your employees more and be able to grow the business and be able to provide the service for your families. And the tuition increases, the only way you can really do that with the continuing cost of living increases.
Right, good point. Talk a little bit about what you should do to your facility. should you do a lot of things? What things should you do? And how does that impact your valuation?
Well, one of the beautiful things about valuations is that capital improvements typically get added back to your cash flow, so they don't hurt you in your valuations, and it increases the value of your company. So if you need to replace your roof, if you need to invest in your curriculum or your kitchen or any of those major capital items that you've been putting off, now's the time to do it, because you'll get credit for doing that in the valuation. So it's not money that's like you're not going to recoup, because you will in the valuation and in the cash flow. And buyers like that. They don't want to buy an asset where they have to put a lot of money in, but they'll give you credit if you do that stuff ahead of time.
Right. What can you name the top couple of things you would do to make? What would you invest in to make your facility look really nice? Would a new roof be more important than a parking lot, or are they seem the same? Would you paint? Would you do curb appeal? What kind of things would you do?
So buyers don't want to spend a lot of money on roofs and parking lots and structural things. They prefer that be intact when they purchase the business. And like I said, those things you'll get the credit back on your valuation, so that they don't have to worry about that, and they're buying a business that can be on the ready and be ready to go after they make the final sale.
And would you say that if you were going to invest in something like that, it would pull your overall value up?
Absolutely.
And probably gain you more than it would
Absolutely.
cost
Well,
you.
and you probably want to do that earlier rather than later, because it would also increase the value to potential customers that would be coming into the business. And that goes back to the other question is, you want to see a consistent increase in enrollment and revenue. And that's a thing that a potential buyer would love to have.
Yeah, excellent. Anything else about the things you should do? Would you manage your costs differently?
Well, the one thing you don't really do is cut your cost to the bone, because it's going to show up immediately when a potential buyer is evaluating you, because that's a red sign, a red flag, and you don't want to cause those things that show up on the first pass. So you want to be consistent. You want to provide a quality care for your children. You want to be a good employer, and you want to increase your revenue and tuitions, and you want to be top of your game, and that will get you the highest value.
Love it. Okay, great. And last question. So I know this is a loaded question, so we could be here for a very long time talking about this, but maybe you could talk about this in buckets. What information would a seller need to be prepared to provide? So do they need to invest in systems or processes that give them information, and what kinds of things would they need to provide?
From a due diligence thing?
In a process or for valuation.
Sure. So monthly revenue, monthly enrollment or FTE if you have that, consistent employee or low turnover in your employees if you can have that. You'll need your staff handbook, your parent handbook, any kind of benefit information, your leases if you have them. You want to be prepared to have all that ready as soon as possible once you decide you want to sell the company, because you want to look sharp, and you want to be on the ball and show the potential buyer that you know what you're doing and you're a good deal.
Would you agree that consistent, timely financial statements are important? So would you say monthly financial statements are important, and to have those produced quickly? Is it okay just to do a tax return? What's preferred?
Most buyers are going to look for a monthly financial statements if possible. Quarterly, and at the very least. Annual is a little bit tough because you can't see trends. Are you trending up? Are you trending down? At least monthly and quarterly, you can see, what your level of trending is going to be. So there again, it goes back to one of the original questions. If you've got 2 years of that, whether it's quarterly or monthly, and it's showing a trend up, then you're going to be a real attractive buy for a purchaser.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, those were great questions. I can't thank you guys enough for the questions, and Rusty for joining me right here. I just kind of grabbed him and said, hey, you're doing this with me. Next week, we will have Kathy Petchel from our team join us. We have some fantastic staffing questions from you guys. You know, one of the things I thought when COVID started was, well, at least we won't have as much trouble with our staff, but that's really not the case. That will continue, and the strategies we have to build around that will need to be creative, and they'll continue. So look for Kathy Petchel with me next week on Thursday night, and we will see you guys then. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
And going to meet the Hinge team for drinks and dinner now. So hope your evening is just as fun. Take care.